Welcome to In the Chute. This is where I get to answer questions. If you've seen this before, you know that I'm incredibly brilliant about this. What do you got, Calen?
Well, there's some cows that have personalities, we'll say. They become very famous on the ranch. One is currently still with us. Her name is Ears. And anybody who's been following us for a minute knows exactly who she is, what she looks like, and what she does. The other thing is that there are others like her. We used to have one called Big Rhonda. We currently still have the twins from a few years back. I affectionately call them Frick and Frack.
Yeah.
Then there's just a couple others that they're known just by their ear tags, but they are known and they've got their own personalities regardless. So the question comes, how does a critter, it doesn't necessarily have to be cows, but they tend to be the easiest ones to kind of pick on. How does a critter become an ears or a Rhonda or a Frick or a Frack?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, it's some attribute that they've got or something that happened. Some of them have been called also,
Yeah.
got a problem. Remember one named or numbered number 62, and your brother just hated her,
Yep.
hated that cow because she was
Yep.
difficult. Good cow. God, she's a great cow, but
In
she
terms
did
of
not want
production,
to.
she was a good cow. Let's keep that
Yeah.
clear.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
no, that's what it was. But and she wasn't mean. She just did not want to go up into a chute.
Yeah.
And she'd run over you. So she, was dispersed over a meat counter somewhere.
Mhm.
Um, you can't have anybody get hurt. So Ears, we people have heard the story of her, and if you haven't, you go look for it, I think. But um she's got no ears. I mean, no ears. They were froze off as a calf. And so sometimes I call her Pigopotamus, and she
Yeah.
has all other kinds of nicknames that
Nuisance.
nuisance. Yeah, she is smart, and
The
she
cake monster is
knows.
another one. Sometimes we're like, oh, here's the cow cake monster coming up for her
Yep,
daily givings. Yeah.
yep. So I think there's a picture of Braden actually feeding her, putting a piece of cake in her mouth, in his mouth, and she took it right out, and just slammed his
Yep.
face.
Yep.
Yeah, that's on here somewhere.
Oh
But
yeah, I'll share it. It'll be a card up above.
okay, so when you've got those cattle that do something or some attribute, and that was her, and I think your grandpa named her because she
He
had
did.
no ears.
Yep.
She had to be called Ears.
Yep.
Probably. I think what he said is she wants them or wishes she had them or something like that.
Yeah, something. I mean, it's the
And
same with my mare, which
yeah,
was also Grandpa's mare.
yep,
Lucky. She had been in two significant accidents that were at nobody's fault other than pure circumstance of horses pushing her into a fence or something, and she has severe scar tissue in the hip and the shoulder, and it kind of hinders her walking a little bit. So what did he do? He called her Lucky.
yep. She's lucky to be alive.
Yep.
So yeah, that's how things get named. Big Rhonda, that was a large cow.
Yep.
And there was it that 70s show?
A
There was
70s show. Yep.
there was
That's
a
his girlfriend. Yep.
yeah, the one girlfriend on there that was a big, tall, raw boned girl, and I called her Big Rhonda. Well, kind of happened this way too. And this cow was a really sweet cow, as much like Ears is. We kind of created that one time, but good cow, but just very, very large and inefficient. So, you know what? Even though you get named, you might go down the roads at some point if you're not pulling your weight. And surprisingly, this year, she basically it's like she abandoned her calf.
Mm.
Had a little steer that just didn't do well, and I don't know what happened, but if she's going to do that, I'm not going to have her because now she just cost us some money. So goodbye.
Yep.
Been nice knowing you. Frick and Frack. I mean, those are just twins, and they just happen to be heifer twins. We were building our herd at that point, and those were their mother was a really nice looking phenotype, good cow. Raised those calves, and they have become good cows themselves.
Well, and
Uh,
they're like typical twins. Everywhere they go, they're always together. If they're not together, there's only one cow between them. So it's like
yeah,
typical
and
twins,
they
frick and frack. It worked.
yeah, they seem to have gotten a little bit more distance there between them.
Okay.
But I had separated them, was it last year, maybe the year before, into different herds, and I separated the two of them. One went to one herd, and one went to another one, based on whatever bulls I wanted them to be with. And God, did I catch hell for separating these twins from you guys? Like, what? You can't separate freaking frack. Well, I did. And that might have done a little something, almost like weaning a cow and a calf, because
Yeah.
I don't see them quite as together as they used to be.
Interesting. Okay.
So yeah, I mean, that's how, cows and calves, when you wean them, I mean, they kind of,
Right.
cows dry up and they kind of forget about those calves a little bit. So it's funny, but yeah, it's some attribute that they've got physically, or something that's happened, or they just happen to, be together. And I think we've even had your brother named a set of twins out here one time that was
I remember.
a heifer and a steer, and he named them. And so, I mean, it just happens. But they went down the road there. We weren't going to keep them around. So
The other question would be, we've talked about this before. A lot of times we'll say, hey, we just don't name them. They're just a number,
right.
because otherwise you do get emotionally attached, and it can get hard, especially after every year you're selling so many every single year. It could be at right now somewhere in the 60s to 70s versus, in a good, when we were kind of getting towards the max of the production, it was closer to 100.
Yeah.
To have 100 little things break your heart every year, you don't want to name them. But the question is, then why in that case are you naming some of these cows? Why do they get names? Why do you call the butcher steers, T-bone, sirloin? Why do you call them cankles, or the most recent one, Frida the freeloader? Why do you give them names if you know they're going to go to town?
I don't know. If you think about it, you kind of do what humans do. If they don't like something or don't want to get attached, they dehumanize them.
Yeah.
So, knowing where they're going to, for the butcher animals, just a reference. And as we do more of them, I've done, multiples of, some steers that you're feeding all at once, and they usually don't get names, because you're not more personal, you're more impersonal with them.
Right.
And they're just steers that you're feeding. The calves, every year when we wean and ship, it doesn't bother me to sell them and send them so much. I mean, there's really not much that they've done. Even if I pulled a calf and you remember that calf or something about them, it doesn't do much. The cows that are on the place for a couple of years, they've been good. Something goes wrong or awry with them, say you got a foot issue, or they're not gaining weight, or they're not producing a calf that you want. Even though that they're going down the road and they may have just an ear tag, that they're just kind of a member of the herd that really doesn't stand out one way or the other. They're not obnoxious and they're not super friendly. They're just one of the cows that is a good solid cow. I have a hard time with that sometimes too, even selling those at the end of the year. They come up dry, or there's something's wrong, and I'm saying, okay, I'm going to sell this cow. Early on, you recognize that she's not supporting a calf like she should. I'll usually give a cow a chance, because it might be a genetic mix between her and a bull. It just didn't work out. I'll give her a second year, depending on if she's a really good cow herself, phenotype wise, attitude wise, everything else is lined up to be what you want. If she produces a calf that second year, there's no question she's gone. You gotta dump her. So she gets to go into the food chain. But even with that, there are cows that have been around a while, and they 8-10 years old, something happens and you go, okay, because we usually get more, some more time out of them. It's hard. You do have an attachment, whether you really recognize it or not. You don't realize it until you're sorting them and you're putting them in a pen that's going to go to town. And it's like, God, and that emotion gets involved with that. It's like, man, she's been a good cow up to this point. I wish she could just be a good cow again. And if she can't, she can't. That's hard. It's tough. I mean, people think that we don't care about these animals. We do.
What do you think's going to happen when yours is no longer around?
Oh, Jesus, that's going to be like the pug dying someday. That's going to be a
I think it's going to be worse than that, because you have a following on social media
that's
that they're going to, They
That's
may
a
or
great
may not
story.
lose their mind when ears goes away.
I mean, none of us are getting out of this alive. How many times have you heard me say that? Right?
Oh yes, life is 100% mortality rate. So
That's right. So, it happens. And yeah, I mean, you don't want it to, but you should see her. We were just looking at her yesterday, out taking a little peek with your mom, and she hasn't seen the cows in really, a couple of weeks because she's been busy and I've been busy and I've just been feeding and doing our things. When went and looked at it yesterday, and you could see old ears has gained some weight since
oh good.
losing that calf. This actually she lost her calf this summer to bloat, but
Yeah.
yeah, she's picked up. She's looking good. The problem with her is she puts everything she's got into these calves. I mean,
Yeah.
she absolutely depletes her body to support a calf, which is
And others
and
calves as
other
well.
calves. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it wasn't like she had lost a calf and then all of a sudden dried up, because she's more than happy to be a wet nurse to
Hmm.
everything else in the country, and does so. She's looking good. These cows are looking good. You can see they're getting heavy. We're gonna start calving here in a month. So I got to get ready for that, and I'm not ready.
Well, that's special names and special critters on the ranch. So with that, we will take that conversation and put it out to pasture.